excited to wish you a very Merry Christmas. Can you believe it's already Christmas Eve?
No, absolutely not. It's been long and short all at the same time.
My sentiments exactly. Now, being that Christmas is here, what is your favorite, most fondest Christmas memory?
I love doing the Christmas walk in Folsom. It's just amazing. They light up the streets with all of these candle bags, and then our whole entire family goes out and we get to walk the whole entire neighborhood. And we have a lot of fun and we sing Christmas songs.
Oh, aren't you guys festive? That sounds pretty awesome.
We're actually kind of silly.
We've not tried that, but we may have to give it a try this year. In the Phillips family household, we love to invite friends over and we like to gather, but things are gonna look a little bit different for us this year, so it will just be our crew, our kiddos, our 5 kids.
Woo,
I know, right? So that's gonna be a party in and of itself. But we're looking forward to it. Yeah, there's so many things that are happening right now as we're gearing up for Christmas, and you're gonna have a chance to take part in our Christmas service here soon. But before we get there, we wanna give you some steps to get you connected here at Life Community Church. And it starts with pulling out your phone. Yep, go ahead and do it. Get your phone out.
You won't get in trouble, we promise.
We promise we won't tell.
Put it away before the service starts. No,
so go ahead and grab your phone and text welcome to what number, Joni?
916-999-5709.
Absolutely. So go ahead and text welcome to that number there. It's going to be listed on the screen for you as well. But this is our chance to get connected with you. Our pastoral team will reach out. Nothing weird, nothing invasive, we promise. We just want to reach out and say hello, welcome you to Life Community Church, and say, hey, how can we get you connected around here? Because there's a lot of great things happening and we want you to be a part of it. In fact, the first of the year, what's kicking off?
Oh man, when we were just in the hallway talking with Pastor Kyle, he was so amped up trying to tell us about what the new series is going to be all about, and we can't wait for you guys to hear it.
Absolutely. So the new series is called Influencer. It's taking a peek into the notion of what is considered to be an influencer. When you think about it, like you look on Instagram, you look on Facebook, all the social media outlets, and you have people with millions of followers, which I think is pretty amazing and odd at the same time. But nonetheless, it's like, what makes them an influencer? Are they truly an influencer? But I think Pastor Kyle is going to walk us through how God has called us to be influencers in our life, and that includes you too. So you definitely want to make sure you join us for the first of the year, January 3rd, as we kick off that new series. But before we get there, we have service on the 27th, right?
Yep, we've got 10 o'clock service on the 27th.
So just a reminder, this coming weekend on Sunday, the 27th, we're going to have one service at 10 a.m. and we want to see you joining us online or in person.
Amen to that.
Awesome. So we look forward to worshiping with you. We hope that you have a very Merry Christmas. And we look forward to seeing you on the 27th and, of course, in the new year. Take care, guys. Bye.
Hear the angels sing, there's hope for everyone, to announce our King. There's hope for everyone. What good news they bring. There's hope for everyone. Angels sing, there's hope for everyone. They came from afar. There's hope for everyone. Wise men saw a star. There's hope for everyone. Shepherds heard the choir. There's hope for everyone. From afar, there's hope for everyone. We are waiting on the promise for the one who lights the darkness. Bending, Lord, I'll be among us. Bring your glory in the highest, Jesus. Come, let us adore. There's hope for everyone on the manger floor. There's hope for everyone. are waiting on the promise. Jesus. For the one who lights the darkness. Jesus. Bending low to be among us. Jesus. Bring your glory in the highest. Jesus. We are waiting. Oh,
days may rise. When darkness veils the skies, I will keep a grip on hope as I sail through the unknown. Clouds fill the atmosphere, waves swell with doubt and fear, but in the middle of the storm, you show me I am not alone. My hope is found in Jesus, the anchor of my soul, standing on firm foundation, a lighthouse shining hope. Yet in my darkest hour, your light will guide me home, a beacon for my rescue, Jesus, the hope for all. Your hope is rising, darkness is trembling. We will declare that you are the light of the world. Our hands are lifting, your voice is shouting. We will declare that you are the light of the world. Your hope is rising, darkness is trembling. We will declare that you are the light of the world. Our hands are lifting, our voices shouting. We will declare that you are the light of the world. Yeah. Oh, come let us adore him. 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 My hope is found in Jesus, the anchor of my soul, standing on firm foundation, a lighthouse shining hope. Yet in my darkest hour, your light will guide me home, a beacon for my rescue, Jesus, the hope for all. Oh, come let us adore him. Oh, come let us adore him. Oh, come let us adore him. Oh, come let us adore him.
The King of all kings. Far away in the east, 3 clever men saw the very same star, the star that God had put in the sky when Jesus was born. They knew it was a sign. A baby king had been born. They had been waiting for this star. They knew it would come. "He's here!" they shouted. "He's here!" And I'm sure if you'd been there, you would have heard them laughing and dancing and singing until the sun came up. At dawn, they packed up their camels and wrapped gifts for the baby. They brought their most precious treasures of all, frankincense, gold, and myrrh, special, sparkly, lovely, smelling, gleaming things, just right for a king. The 3 wise men Actually, if you'd met them, you'd have thought they were kings because they were so rich and clever and important looking. Anyway, they set off. They rode their camels across endless deserts, up steep, steep mountains, down into deep, deep valleys, through raging rivers, over grassy plains, night and day and day and night, for hours that turned into days, that turned into weeks, that turned into months and months, until at last they reached Jerusalem. Jerusalem was by far the most important city for miles around, and as anyone can tell you, that's where a palace would be, and kings are born in palaces. So that's where they went. But they were in for a surprise. They went to see King Herod. Surely he'd know where this baby was, but he didn't. In fact, he didn't like the sound of a new king. It made him cross. He didn't want anyone to be king except him. But Herod's advisers told the 3 wise men what was written in their books, what God had said about the baby king. Go to Bethlehem. That's where you'll find him. Suddenly, the star they had seen in the east started moving again, showing them the way. So the 3 wise men followed the star out of the big city, along the road, into the little town of Bethlehem. They followed the star through the streets of Bethlehem, out of the nice part of town, through the not-so-nice part of town, into the really not nice at all part of town, down a little dirt track until it stopped right over a little house. But wait, it wasn't a palace, and there weren't any guards or servants or flags or red carpets or trumpets or anything. Did they get it wrong? Or was this what God meant? Sure enough, in that little house, there sitting on his mother's knee, they found him, the baby king. The 3 men knelt before the little king. They took off their rich royal turbans and gleaming golden crowns. They bowed their noble heads to the ground and gave him their sparkling treasures. The journey that had begun so many centuries before had led 3 wise men here, to a little town, to a little house, to a little child.
Did they get it wrong? Could they have gotten it wrong? After all the years of study and exploration and curiosity, they were the experts. Could they have gotten it wrong? Which then leads us to the question, could we have gotten it wrong? Or the scarier question, could God have gotten it wrong? You see, friends, this Christmas Eve, what I want to tell you is that maybe, just maybe, you and I have gotten this story wrong. And what I want to do this Christmas Eve is tell this story in a different light, where we go back and look at what God was doing back then so that we can see what God is doing now. And my belief is this: when you see this story in a whole new way, you're going to see yourself. You're going to see God, and more importantly than that, I think you're going to see 2020 in a whole new way. And what you're going to do is you're going to have your eyes open to see how God has been at work. And the Christmas story, the Christmas miracle, is not a story that we tell about what happened 2,000 years ago. It's a story that we live into every day in our everyday lives at every moment. But first, let me go back. Let me tell you the story. You see, these 3 folks, they're known as the 3 magi. They're known as the 3 wise men. They're also known as 3 kings. Why are they known by such different titles? And how do we even know that there were 3 of them? Well, let's back up. They have these weird different titles because they have a weird, different, out-of-the-box background. They have a backstory that most people in the Bible don't have. You see, they were part of another religion. The three magi's, magicians, three kings, three rulers, three wise men, three folks who had studied and learned. Why? Because they'd spent their entire lives studying astrology. Yes, you heard me. These three guys who are thrown into the middle of the biblical Christmas narrative are not even part of this family of faith. You see, they've spent their lives studying astrology. You see, and it's not that uncommon. At that day and age, astrology is the fastest growing religion in the world. Astrology at that time is a 3,000-year-old religion, and it works kind of like this. Essentially what happens is they look at the stars. They see the big stars, which must be the big gods, and the little stars, which are maybe the little gods, or maybe they're working for the big gods. And these gods are living in an ocean up above, and the skies move just like the waves, and the motion of the ocean moves around us every day. And so they look out and they see these gods moving with the seasons, with the tides, and every time there's a change in their lives. Every time a new star is born, they wonder, is there a new person born into deity? Every time a star falls, they wonder, is it possible that one of the gods has died or been defeated and there's a change in the heavens? But more importantly, the question is, how does the interaction between heaven and earth connect? You see, heaven and earth connected 50 years before Jesus was born, at least according to these magi. You see, here's the story. About 50 years before Jesus was born, there was a comet in the sky. This comet didn't last for 1 hour or 1 day. It lasted for 1 week. For 7 days, all of the world could see this comet across the sky. And 50 years before that, it happened at the same time that the emperor of Rome died. So his son, actually his adopted son, named Octavian, who is better known as Caesar Augustus. Caesar Augustus makes up this story, and he says this. He says, when my dad, the emperor, died, he went into the stars, and for 7 days we saw my dead father ascend into the stars and become a god. Therefore, I, Caesar Augustus, am the son of a god. And you should listen, because I'm powerful. You should pay your taxes, because we're important. And you better not have any military uprisings against us. Why? Because we'll crush you. And you see, 50 years before this happened, a king died, and upon his death, he becomes enthroned in the stars as a god. But this story is different. This story, these magi who come and travel, we know there's probably not 3 of them. Now, the video said there was 3 of them. You maybe heard there was 3 of them, but it's almost impossible that 3 folks could travel all the way across the Fertile Crescent or the Middle East by themselves. It would have been too dangerous. We usually say that there's 3 of them because there's 3 gifts that they give to baby Jesus. But when they get there, they discover something different about this king. You see, they come to Herod and say, who is the one born king of the Jews? Whoa, whoa, whoa. First thing that's different. The last time there was a star in the sky, it was the death of the emperor. And upon his death, he was made divine. But on this new king, the king of the Jews, upon his birth, he's made divine. And when they get there, they don't see a powerful king in a palace with soldiers. They see a vulnerable baby in a stable with shepherds. And these magi who spent their entire life studying this, who spent every night studying the stars, and looking for what reality is, looking for how heaven comes to earth and how earth goes to heaven. And on this moment, they discover that everything they knew was different. But here's the big idea here. I tell you this big story to make this point. This is what I want you to hear. This is the Christmas Eve message that you need to hear, is that what God did was amazing. You see, God stepped in to the Magi's everyday life and changed everything about him. You see, he changed everything about them by stepping into their everyday life. Did the Magi start by going to church? No. Did they start by reading the scriptures? Probably not. Did they start by saying, we have an open-minded idea of who God is and we want to know? No. They had a very fixed idea. They had a religion, a school of thought, a belief in the stars. And God used the stars, the very thing they focused on, studied, and put their hope in to change everything. You see, friends, the good news of Christmas is that God loves you so much. He doesn't wait for you to come to him. He doesn't wait for you to turn your eyes and your attention to him. He knows where your eyes, your attention, and your hope is, and he steps into that. So friends, let me pause and ask this question. How has God stepped into your everyday life this year? Oh, I know what I'm saying. I know many of you say, oh, I feel like I haven't seen God for about the last 9 months. Since about the middle of March, I feel like God's been nowhere near. But I want to change your narrative. I want to help you discover, how has God been at work? How has he stepped into your everyday life this year? You see, I had a pretty good schedule in everyday life that we kind of did on a regular basis, and then it changed. I used to spend Saturday mornings, I'd take my boys, 4 and 7, I'd take them to the park. I'd take them to Rock and Jump so they could play with other kids and have a good time. And then all of a sudden, parks and Rock and Jump got shut down. And I'm like, how do I parent if they can't play with other kids and get all the other energy out? And this is not going to be good. But what happened? We had to discover new ways to play and interact. I remember one of the first weekends during the shutdowns, during the quarantine, social distancing, we found these new trails that we had driven by day after day and didn't even know they were there. And we took our boys out and they ran and they played and they had a phenomenal time. And as I watched the joy on their face, as my life comes crashing down when the world shut down, what I discovered in them was their ability to find joy in any situation. And when I saw it, what it did, it was an everyday experience that changed me because I realized how important and valuable my family truly was. You see, friends, I believe in 2020, social distancing has taught us many things, but the most important thing, the thing that I hear everyone say, and it seems like we disagree on everything, so I know what I'm saying here, the things that social distancing has taught everyone, that everyone seems to agree, in the midst of social distancing, we know that our relationships are more valuable than ever before. But it's changed some things. It's maybe changed the way we do church. We're so used to gathering in this room, and now you are gathering all over the town, the world, the country. But we've realized that even though we may be socially distant, it's important to be connected. I was talking to someone in our church who was diagnosed with the coronavirus. They hadn't been in the building. They'd been super safe, super cautious, and they still caught the virus. And I said, is there anything we can do to help? And he said, no. So what do you mean, no? We're at church. We're here to help. He says, my small group's already done everything I need. The moment they found out in the group chat, my small group brought dinner, they ordered groceries, and there's a meal sign up, and they got meals coming for the next week. We have everything we need. Yeah, we're socially distant. Yeah, we don't hug and handshake when the food is dropped off, but I know that in this time of social distance, of quarantine, I know that these relationships are more powerful and important than ever before. What happened? God stepped into my everyday life and his everyday life. You see, God has stepped into my everyday life this year. You see, as a pastor, as a leader, it's my job to create a vision and a plan and move us forward. And every single one of my plans came crashing down. Little inside information, we have a year-long calendar that we have in my office that's about our strategy, our planning, and our most important things. And the joke around our team, our pastoral team, is this, that every single thing that's been put on that calendar has been canceled or rescheduled. And I realized how vulnerable and how fragile my plans can be. But it made me realize how strong and faithful God can be. Oh, we're going to sit in that for a minute. You see, what we see in baby Jesus is a picture of vulnerability and fragility, but we also see in there a power of strength and accessibility, and he steps into and transforms our lives. And what I want to tell you is what we see in baby Jesus is the same thing I think that we've seen in each other this year. What we've realized is that we're more fragile, we're more vulnerable. Relationships are more susceptible to division and attack and bitterness. But at the same time, we found the resilience of the human spirit to be stronger than we realized. What 2020 has taught us, how God has stepped into our everyday reality has showed us that we're weaker than we thought and we're stronger than we thought. And in a way that seems mysterious and impossible, but we see it in baby Jesus. So how have you seen God step into your everyday life this year? Through family, through struggles, through something outside of the blue, through scrolling on your social feed, through work. Because the first thing I think God does is he goes and he steps into your everyday life. But it doesn't stop there. He changes everything. You see, look at what he changed in the Magi, in these wise men, in these astrologers. You see, they were part of a religion, the fastest growing religion of the day, a 3,000-year-old religion. And what happened? They changed everything because they invited them and to be on a journey. They invited them to come. God invited them to come and explore these seekers to say, let me show you what the interaction between heaven and earth actually looks like. Because I know you know the story of what happened 50 years ago when the emperor died and became a deity, but let me tell you how God has actually changed that story and then changes everything for the Magi. You see, the story the Magi believed was that when the king died, he became a deity, but what happens here is that upon Jesus' birth, he's proclaimed God. You see, what happened 50 years ago is God went and left heaven, and what happened here is that God came and invaded earth. You see, he flipped it upside down. Instead of an emperor wanting to go and escape earth, it's a God who's come to save earth. Instead of a God who says, listen to me and pay your taxes and do what you're told, it's a God who came to earth and says, you're unable to listen. You're unable to do what you're told. And instead of you paying taxes, instead of you paying tribute, instead of you trying to give to the divine, look what the divine can give you. You see, instead of us being forced to pay taxes to the emperor, what happens is that God says, no, let me flip that equation upside down. I'm going to give my most precious thing. The God of the universe says, I'm going to give my son, the one true son of God, and he's going to die on a cross. Not so that he can get more from you, but that he can give his righteousness to you. So he can give new life to you. So that you can receive the greatest gift the world has ever received as a gift from God. And in this new narrative, the Magi's have their whole world turned upside down. It's not a distant God in the stars. It's a God who steps down into their world. It's not a God who's distant. It's a God who's close. It's not a God who demands. It's a God who gives. It's not a God who escapes. It's a God who rescues. And their story, their narrative is changed. You see, what I want to tell you is though these Magi were walking in darkness, they saw a great light, and it changed everything. I said at the very beginning of this sermon, the very beginning of this talk, that I want you to see this story in a new way so you can see your life in a new way and see that Christmas is not only something we experience and remember that happened 2,000 years ago, but we remember that we experience Christmas every day. What I want to do now is share with you three stories of how people have experienced the Christmas miracle this year. Three people whose lives were put into darkness and God stepped in and shined the light. The same way he put the light in the stars in the sky to lead the Magi, that he would put the light in their lives to lead and guide them. But it didn't end there. What I want you to hear in each of these stories is that these people who were in darkness received the light and then shared the light and love and good news of Jesus with others. You see, this is what we celebrate in our candle lighting. As we do our Christmas Eve tradition of candle lighting, what we do is we proclaim that God's light has stepped into our dark lives. And if we receive the light and love of Jesus, we then have the privilege and opportunity to share that with others. Let me show you and let me tell you these Christmas miracles so you can see how Christmas miracles happen every day and change everything about our lives. Jeff and Alicia, you called me, and I got that call that no one of us want to hear. You were in the hospital with Alicia's father moments before he was about to pass away. And as a pastor, I get the opportunity, the joy to step into those intimate places and bring hope and light into those moments. But I experienced something that I've never experienced before. Your dad, on his deathbed, became the embodiment and voice of hope. He talked about the great hope he had in Jesus, how Jesus had changed his life and shined a light. And what happened is he stepped into the world, and your father's life, and even on his deathbed, shared the light of Christ with us in that moment. But the story didn't end there. In a time of struggle and a time of tragedy, it reawakened and strengthened your faith. Your family came together. You two joined a rooted small group together, and you've said, God, let this light that we've experienced shine through in leading women's ministry and committing your family to saying, we will experience and share the light and love of Jesus, even in the darkest times. Jim, you have one of the most important and difficult jobs a person can have. That's become even more important and more difficult over the last year. You're an elementary school teacher. And in all the challenges of trying to figure out how to live and love and serve kids, about a month ago, you were diagnosed with the coronavirus, which turned everything upside down. But one of the things I love is the day that you were cleared to go back, you wanted to jump right back into the classroom to be the embodiment of light and love to each one of those kids that God had put under your care. They actually told you to take another week off, and you were bummed by that. But the light of Christ has always shined through you, always shone through you in the classroom. I remember a story of a little girl I met out in our lobby. She came up to me and she said, oh, I came into this church because of Mr. Shaw. I said, who? Mr. Shaw, the guy who plays guitar. I'm like, oh yeah, I know Jim. And she said that one day she came up to you and asked if you were a Christian. And you said, why did you say that? You said, there's something different about you. She said there was a light that shone through you. And even in these darkest times, even when you're diagnosed with the coronavirus, God has continued to shine into your darkest days. And even though it's been a difficult year for you and your family, you've continued to be the light and let the light of Christ shine through you. Marcia and Rick, when you moved down here 5 years ago, you moved here to be closer to family. But when you retired with a prayer. You said, I'd stop working for money, but I still wanted to work for Jesus. And you prayed for two things. You prayed for a purpose and for patience. God answered that prayer, but in a way that none of us would have wanted. A few years ago, you were diagnosed with leukemia, a rare form of cancer that has changed your life. It's changed your ability to interact with family and friends in your church during this corona pandemic. And it's given you patience, but it also gave you a purpose. You two started volunteering with the National Cancer Society, and it started in small ways. And then you were leading big fundraisers, and eventually, Rick, you started leading support groups for other people who had this rare form of leukemia as well. And in a time that might have been one of the darkest of your life, God has used you to be a light to others. In the darkness of cancer, God stepped in and showed his light and love to you. But then he used you to be a light for others who are going through the same thing. He answered your prayer and gave you patience and a purpose in a difficult season. Even in one of the darkest, most difficult years of our lives, we continue to see the Christmas miracle through every single one of these stories. We see how God's light has shone into the darkness, and God has invited each of us to not only receive, but to experience the story by being and shining a light to those around us. Now, as we do our candle lighting, as we pass it from one person to the next, let's celebrate that the miracle of Christmas is a miracle we experience tonight.
Son of God, love's pure light, radiant beams from thy holy face, with the dawn of redeeming grace. Jesus, Lord, at thy birth. Jesus, Lord, at thy birth.
Tonight, may we be reflecting on all those that have come alongside us through the struggles, through the pain, being a light to us in those dark places. May we remember Jesus standing in the gap for us, reconciling us back to God the Father, being light in the darkness. May we sing out to Jesus in praise and celebration. Let's sing out.
Silent night, holy night, all is calm, all is bright, round the young virgin mother and child. So tender and mild, sleep in heavenly peace, sleep in heavenly
Merry Christmas, Life Community family. Thank you for joining us and worshiping and experiencing the Christmas story. The prophet Isaiah says it this way. He says, the world was in great darkness, but they experienced a great light. And what I want to remind you is that though 2020 has been filled with darkness, the light is always brightest in the darkness. And that light is there to lead and guide your way. I want to invite you to continue like the Magi did and follow that light. I want to invite you this Sunday, 10 a.m., in person or online, to come and follow that light and experience God's guidance in your life. But I also want to tell you that in the new year, what we're going to do is we're going to start by changing the way we see our lives and realizing that God wants to use you to be a light in the world around you. So come and see the light, experience the light and love of Jesus, follow him, and share the good news with others. Merry Christmas. Thanks for worshiping with you. We'll see you soon.